everybody, what's going on? Slick D Gamer, Scott W. Perry here, and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Retro Chronicles, where we're taking a look at the history of WWF WWE video games. We're up to episode number 13, either lucky 13 or unlucky 13, one way you look at it. However, I would kind of say we're probably in the unlucky category in some ways, because in video game retrospective, we're up to the year 1995, and this was a very interesting year for a lot of reasons, okay? Personally, it was the year I turned 18, so I was able to do some things legally for the first time that I kind of had already been doing, but we'll save that for another time. But, you know, wrestling in particular was going through a very transitional period. Over in the competition in WCW, Hulk Hogan was still doing his 80s thing. He had Randy Savage jump ship and join him in WCW, and a lot of the main events seen in WCW felt familiar. Whereas WWF was really going into this new generation craze, especially in '95. Diesel, Kevin Nash, was the world champion for most of the year. Shawn Michaels had transitioned from being a top heel to being a top babyface and was really starting to become the face of the company. Undertaker was still the Undertaker, and you still had Bret Hart to, you know, Bret Hart was just a solid performer that the company really needed at that time. But you could sense the industry as a whole was changing. And this also meant with gaming as well. In 1995, the 16-bit era was coming to an end. After 6 years on the market, Sega Genesis was kind of phasing out. They had a 32X add-on, which wasn't really doing any favors. And then out of nowhere, this new console comes out from Sony called the PlayStation that really blew the doors open on everything. It was in 1995. I bought a Sony PlayStation when it first came out because I was curious about it. You know, the $300 price tag was interesting, and some of the games that they had at launch looked pretty good. Interesting fact about the PlayStation: it was originally supposed to be an add-on for the Super Nintendo as a CD system to counter the Sega CD at the time. Sony decided to go on their own and make their own console, and well, the rest, as you could say, is history, because Sony is now probably one of, I would say, the biggest US console market right now. PlayStation 5 I just got, and it's really good. But in WWF video game form, we had said goodbye in a way to the 16-bit era. We're moving forward to the PlayStation era. But this also meant that we weren't done in the arcades. And WWF went a very interesting route with this one. Instead of going through the, you know, kick and brawl and punch and everything like that, they decided to team up with Midway and go the Mortal Kombat route and team up with the Mortal Kombat developers and develop a game into that style. Now, at the time, I hated it. I admit I did not like it. I saw it in the arcades and I thought, you know, this really has no place to be, because I wanted at least a little bit of realism. As much as the 8-bit and 16-bit games were corny, they were cartoonish, they still had a little bit of that realism to it. This just took everything overboard. But in retrospect, I look at it now, it's actually a game I do enjoy playing. I grew to like it quite a lot. And as a result, you know, I think we're all better for it. And it's become one of the more popular games, albeit one of the most unlikeliest ones, but it's become one of the more popular games in for the retro era. And we decided, and that was WrestleMania, the arcade game. That is the Sony PlayStation version. It was released on consoles, a lot of consoles, but first it was released in arcades in September of 1995. It had a roster of only 8, but they were all digitized like Mortal Kombat. So instead of seeing like these sprites and these little 8-bit things where everybody looked the same, you got the actual wrestlers. So if you were playing, you know, as one of the 8, it was them. They actually took them in a room, digitized them, filmed, you know, doing their moves, and it looked phenomenal. Now, there's only 8 in here, and the entire roster is from the 16-bit Raw game with a few omissions. But we only have 8. But it's an interesting 8, and the 8 wrestlers depicted in the game are Bret the Hitman Hart, Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker, Bam Bam Bigelow, Lex Luger, Yokozuna, Razor Ramon, and Doink the Clown. While I think 8 is a good number to have, and it really had a decent size, you know, for what they were trying to do, I felt there could have been more. They could have added at least 3 or 4 more for the game. You know, at the time, as I said earlier, Diesel was the champion for most of 1995. He's your world champion. He's not in this game. I thought that was a big miscue. And also, I did learn later on from, I believe, Ed Boon, the creator of the game and for Mortal Kombat, he did admit that at an early stage, Adam Bomb was supposed to be in the game, and there's actually a file for him in the source code if you go and look it up. Of course, I haven't, but I believe him. But I would have liked to have seen, you know, Adam Bomb would have been a nice addition, even though he was on the way out at the time. Diesel would have been a great addition. Owen Hart. You know, in 1995, the British Bulldog came back, so it would have been nice to have just a couple more to kind of flesh it out a little bit. But I'm very happy with the 8 that we have. The gameplay is actually, like I said, if you want Mortal Kombat, you got it. It is structured exactly like Mortal Kombat. You have a tier, you have an Intercontinental title and a World Heavyweight title. Intercontinental title, you start off 1-on-1, 4 matches, then you do a 2 matches of a 1-on-2 handicap, and then you do a 1-on-3 to become Intercontinental Champion. For the heavyweight division, you start off with 2-on-1 handicap matches, and then you do 1-on-3 handicap, 4, let me rephrase that, you do 4 1-on-2 handicap matches, you do 2 1-on-3 handicap matches, and then the last match is pretty much a Royal Rumble where you take on everybody else from the roster. You take on all 8 because you do have mirror matches. So if you ever wanted to live out that Undertaker versus Undertaker SummerSlam 94 matchup, you have this game to thank. The gameplay, as I said, is very good. It's very over the top, very Mortal Kombat style. The graphics for the arcade, for the PlayStation, and for the Saturn versions, and for the DOS version, those versions were identical. Like I said, I have the PlayStation version here. I don't have a Saturn, and I don't have it on DOS. So the only modern version that I have to play with it is on this one. However, I will say it is identical to the arcade. The arcade was a smashing hit, and I did enjoy playing it. Of course, I always played as Bret Hart, and you could do a lot of. They do have a lot of their signature moves in there. Bret Hart does have the sharpshooter. It looks a little interesting with it. But the moves that they have are pretty good. Undertaker hits people over the head with a tombstone. Doink has an electric buzzer that shocks, you know, your wrestler turns into a skeleton for about 3 seconds. Lex Luger has like a Stars and Stripe kind of things that he does. Yokozuna hits people with rice bowls. So, you know, we're still kind of racist at the time. And, you know, and my personal favorite, I actually just found out about this. You know, if you talk about over-the-top moves, Shawn Michaels was a Canadian destroyer 10 years before the move was invented, which I found very interesting. You know, but Michaels does Hurricane Ranas. So basic moves are in there. You have commentary from Vince McMahon and Jerry Lawler. And it's interesting. Vince McMahon tries his best to do his NBA Jam impression. You know, I mean, it's kind of worth it just to hear Vince say boom shakalaka, you know, in Vince's voice, boom shakalaka. So that's me doing Bruce Pritchard doing Vince McMahon. That's not me doing Vince McMahon. So that's how I am. But the regular versions are pretty spot on. I enjoy it. It's good. I do suck at getting a lot of the moves and the combo moves on it. So in my gameplay that I put up about 5-6 years ago, I used an invincible cheat code. I don't care. I wanted to show the ending of the game. I had a couple of people in the comment board telling me, oh, you suck and this and that. I said, well, you know what? You try it. You know, it's funny when you know, you kind of don't feed the trolls on it, but you know, it's kind of funny when they're like, ah, they stink. You know, and it's like, whatever. I'm just trying to show you that, you know, it is a fun game when you do it, and I wanted to show you how it looked like when it ended. So, but that was the, you know, PlayStation, Saturn, DOS, mainly PlayStation. It was one of the first games I got for the PlayStation, so I played it a lot. With that said, they were still trying to breathe out life in the 16-bit era, so we did get it for both Genesis and Super Nintendo. Now, the Genesis version, it's not bad. The graphics are scaled down a bit. It's still digitized, but this one was done by Sculptured Software as well as the PlayStation games. So it wasn't exactly the Midway games. So you see a little bit of a tiny bit of a slide in the PlayStation version in terms of the quality. And the Genesis and the Super Nintendo, it goes down really, really, really bad. The 32X version of this is a little bit better. I don't have a copy. It's very expensive to find. But you have all 8 wrestlers, all the moves are in there. It does move a tad slower when you have more than one opponent, I noticed in the Genesis, but at least it has all 8 superstars in there. For the Super Nintendo version, you only have 6 in there, and the graphics are really scaled down. it moves slow. It moves good with one-on-one, but the moment you get to like a 1-on-2 match, it is slower than molasses. It is really, really bad. But in this one, they took out Yokozuna and Bam Bam Bigelow because of space. And so you only get, you know, you only have 6. So it's a little repetitive. It doesn't really feel as good. I would not, like I said, I have it for collection reasons, and that's it. But the Super Nintendo version, I would say, is not a good get to have. It's really, really scaled down, and you know, now I would recommend if you have a PlayStation to get that version. But it's fun. Now, as I said, I suck at playing these games and I don't know all the moves. Now, like with Raw, they did have a video guide with it, and with the Coliseum Video and Acclaim, they did manage to have a official video for the arcade game. Now, this one's only about 20 minutes long, and you know, they do have, like the Raw version, they do have superstars talk about some of the moves that they do and the combos that they move. This video, they have a funny one of Bret Hart visiting the Acclaim office, which I didn't know. I actually live like 20 minutes away from where Acclaim was, like throughout my entire childhood. I didn't even realize that Acclaim was like literally down the street from me. So if they were doing everything there, it meant that like all the superstars were doing everything there. So, you know, so that was kind of fun. And, but overall, I would say WrestleMania arcade game, when I didn't like it when it first came out, but I really enjoy it now. It is a fun throwback. It's a nice alternative for everything going on. Kind of like what WWE was looking at the time. They were trying to find what their niche was. They were lost a little bit, and they were trying to find it again. So overall, I would say WrestleMania arcade game, I would give it a solid thumbs up. I think it's a really, really good addition to the library and a great retro game to begin with. All right, next time we're going to continue with this Mortal Kombat tradition, and we're going to go to the year 1996, which was probably a pivotal year in wrestling. But instead of staying at WrestleMania, we're now going to go in your house. And stay tuned for that. In the meantime, I'm Slick D Gamer, Scott W. Perry, signing off.